We've got a lot to talk about today on the show. We're going to talk about some injuries. We're going to talk about some movement at different positions. We're going to talk about some major criticisms of this coaching staff. But being one of the most humble people that I've ever met myself, Jack said earlier, James, you're one of the most humble people I've ever met as well. He agreed. Nobody's more humble than I am. That's a fact. And so to make sure that, because I saw a few comments yesterday, I saw some people trip me on Twitter. You said that the tight ends, maybe Michigan was going to start the third string tight end. And I want to address it because I'm not going to run away through things I got. We've got a great track record of getting stories out on this program before anybody else, and the things that came true, we're probably about 80, 90% better than anybody else in the game. But I did want to say that I said I was thinking it was likely that Colson Loveland and Marlon Klein weren't going to play in this game. I'll tell you about that why in a second. But first, I do want to ask you guys to subscribe to the Michigan Football Report. It is youtube.com/Michigan TV. But subscribe so you can always get our videos at the top or near the top, hopefully, of your YouTube feed when you press that YouTube icon on your iPhone, on your Android, or go to youtube.com. If you like the show, do subscribe already. Always share the link in your Michigan football text threads and others. Let's keep it rolling here. The two tight ends they played, right? The starting tight end, Colson Loveland, the guy who started against USC, that is Marlon Klein. Loveland only got 14 snaps, surprisingly, because it seemed like he was in there for more, but maybe that's because the high percentage of times they went to him. 14 snaps for him, 4 catches, so a pretty high percentage, which is about 30-ish%, maybe 28% or so, where Marlon Klein, I think he only had 1 catch, but was in there on 46 snaps. So basically, anytime Michigan passed the ball, I actually think it was 14 passing downs, right? Colson Loveland was on every single one of them. Now, Klein was in on a few of those as well, but Marlon Klein was on, I think, every single running attempt that Michigan had. So that's kind of how it broke it down to. So why I want to address what was wrong? Because there's a new sheriff in town. Things are being done differently. And what I based my information on was, hey, these guys were out there in shorts. They were out there in a helmet. No pads, no reps of the one all week long leading up to Thursday. Maybe something changed Thursday night. They did a midnight practice that I didn't know about. So when you hear Klein and Loveland are not in the game, are not, practicing with the ones, with the twos all week long. In the past, under Jim Harbaugh, right, the last 9 years, kind of some of the same sources, that meant the same damn thing every time. It meant they would not play in the game on Saturday if they weren't full go practice either Wednesday or Thursday. That's not the case, though, apparently, with Sherrone Moore. He is willing to play guys who didn't practice at all. And I don't blame him. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's a different thing. So we need to, as fans, as hosts and producer of this program, just kind of reset our expectations for what it means if a guy sits out of practice all week. It still might mean he is playing in the game. That game is Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Michigan, Washington, out there on the West Coast. I am getting excited for it. Coming up, guys, I am going to talk about injuries, right? You had Will Johnson. You had Josaiah Stewart. You had others, right? A couple guys maybe on the offensive line. We'll talk about the rest of this week. What is the latest on the injury report for Michigan going into this, what I think is a pivotal game against Washington coming up on Saturday night? Guys, if you want Michigan to beat Washington, give me a like on today's video. We're only asking because it's putting out the good vibes. The only game we have lost in the last 3 years, Jack, when we did this, was the Texas game. And you know why? Because I wore the May shirt in the stadium, didn't wear my lucky shirt. So I think it's a twofer, right? We were getting tricked. You got to like the video, so do it. Don't be the guy at Saturday night if Michigan loses blaming yourself, because we've already banned one person who didn't like the video against Texas, and I will be wearing my Michigan Lucky Game Day shirt. This combo is undefeated since October 30th, 2021 in regular season games. Like the video. I'll make sure to wear my shirt on Saturday. Michigan will beat Washington. The Michigan Football Report is presented by Factor. I love Factor because during football season, I don't have a ton of time to go home and cook myself meals. Long days at the office means less time at home, and thankfully, I have today's sponsor, Factor, to help me stay full even on game days. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for football season thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. If I wasn't married, I've got someone home that cooks me a lot of meals, but I still love Factor. But if I was going home, Jack, living by myself, living with a roommate, didn't have a wife preparing me food, I would be Factor's biggest customer. I'm still a good customer. I would be their biggest customer because the meals taste great. You can get them prepared in 2 minutes. They're delivered right to your home. And with code MichiganChat50, that is MichiganChat50, you go over to factormeals.com/MichiganChat50. Use that code MichiganChat50 to get up to 50%. Get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Again, code is Michigan Chat 50. It's down in the comments. It's down in the description of today's video. You go to factormeals.com/Michigan 50. Again, 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is still active. I love Factor Meals. Jack, a.k.a. Young Harbaugh, loves Factor Meals, and you will as well. If you don't like cooking, you don't have time in the kitchen, get going. factormeals.com/Michigan Chat 50. Michigan's facing Washington, and it got me a little nostalgic this morning as we were putting on today's show, just thinking about that was the greatest day of my life, Jack. I'm sure it was the greatest day of yours, maybe top 5, maybe top 3, I'm not sure. Top 5 for sure. And so let's just recap. Just like many games the last few years with Michigan, they dominated the first half, but didn't really blow the team out. And then the fourth quarter got on, as Joel Katz said, the boa constrictor, and made Washington make mistakes. Put the ball in the end zone in the fourth quarter. Blake scored him 2 touchdowns late. Micah Sainristil, that epic interception wasn't necessarily epic, in that it was some immaculate play, but fourth down interception, and then I think a good call by Chris Fowler, like Sainristil with some blockers, a convoy, and I wish it was actually Braden McGregor gave up on the play, blocked a guy like the 40-yard line. Ultimately, the guy that he could have blocked next was the one who made the Sainristil tackle. Sainristil could have gone all the way 85 or so yards for a just emphatic game-sealing touchdown. One of the great days of my life. I just want to make sure I remind you guys of that and just kind of feel the vibes of talking about it one more time here on the show before Michigan gets that rematch, right? It's all different players, all different coaching staffs, but goes out and defends their title against the team that they beat by 3 touchdowns just back on January 8th. One of the greatest days of my life. No, the greatest day of my life. One of the greatest days of Jack's. If it's one of the greatest days for you guys, one of the greatest or the greatest day in your life. Remember, January 8th, they talk about January 6th. We're January 8ers. We don't worry about that. So give me an 8 in the comments. This is their sign. If you see a Michigan fan, just go January 8th, right? We're J8ers. Give me a J8 down in the comments to show you love for the greatest day in the history of college football. Let's talk about Sherrone Moore's injury update from his media appearance. The press conference on Monday, but I think where he actually opens up is his media kind of Michigan Coaches Hour radio appearance that's broadcast locally around Ann Arbor and the Detroit area. First up, he was asked about Will Johnson and Josaiah Stewart and was pretty upfront about it. He just basically said, I think they'll be ready to practice this week and they will be ready to go. So not really much to expand on there, but when you are missing your 2 best players on defense, at least, maybe I should take this back, the 2 most impactful players from the USC game at least, right? The stats and the impact, Josaiah Stewart, his best game I think that he's ever had in college, certainly at Michigan. 4 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, was all over the quarterback, forced that one fumble that Kenneth Grant ultimately picked up and rumbled about 25 yards and then got stripped himself. Stewart, if he's back, TJ Guy played pretty well in backing up getting his first start for Josaiah Stewart, but Will Johnson, you've got an impact player, maybe a first rounder. I'm telling you what, Josaiah Stewart, he's undersized, but if he keeps playing like this the next 6, 7, 8, maybe beyond games for Michigan as they go into a potential 4th straight college football playoff appearance, this guy who came over after 2 good seasons at Coastal Carolina, he might work himself into a first-round grade. Maybe size holds him back to a 2nd grade, but then you've got Will Johnson, right? Will Johnson is the best cornerback in college football. You get both those 2 guys back. I like Michigan to clean up some of the defensive lapses that we've seen over the past few weeks. We saw it against USC with both those guys, but the play that could have been and ended up being maybe the difference in the game was that pick 6 by Will Johnson himself. So that's what Sherrone Moore says. I don't know what to make of some of the things he said about injuries because he makes it seem like a guy's play. He doesn't play. Make it seem like another group of guys is not going to play. They do play. I'm not really sure, but it's probably better than uncertainty. It seems like he thinks they are going to play. Let's talk some offense now. People are talking in the comments. People are talking on social media. Just my friends as well who follow Michigan football. With Michigan having a bye next week, right? A week from Saturday, is this game against Washington a make or break from Alex Orji? Look at the stats from his first 2 starts. Now, take a look at those. Take them all in. 56%, 57% completion percentage. 118 yards for this Michigan quarterback who got the start after 3 okay, but ultimately turnover-filled appearances from Davis Warren. Now, it's very clear that Warren can throw the ball a hell of a lot better than Alex Orji. Can't really get the run going. Either with him, of course, Warren is not a runner himself, but the Michigan running game itself did not look as good and was not breaking off the kind of yards that they have these past 2 weeks. But when we think about Orji and what he's done, 17 of 30 for 118, that is the lowest. I saw this on Twitter. the lowest, and it seemed like it come from a reputable source. I have to go back and look. It was one of the blog boys. 118 passing yards, the lowest in over 50 years, going back to 1972. So we're talking about 52 seasons, right? And we're talking about, who's some players. I mean, you got some guys in the 80s, Steve Smith, et cetera, that were total option quarterbacks. But you've got Nick Sheridan. You've got Steve 3. Love you, Stevie 3. You've even got Brandon Peters. You've got, John O'Corn. You've got some, mediocre or bad quarterback player at this Michigan football, this position over the years. But Alex Orji has set a new low, and let's just call it the modern, even the modern, and pre-modern era of college football. Basically, since a few years after color TV was invented, Alex Orji has set a low for passing with Michigan. But can he take a leap forward against Washington? The thing that I see that is missing from Alex Orji right now is he's not getting it done on the ground as a runner, right? Hasn't broke off 100-plus yards a game. And even like you think about Denard Robinson, he had plenty of 250 and 300 and even 350-yard passing games. But Denard, even if he didn't have that, even if he had 115 yards passing, he would have 185 yards rushing, etc. And we haven't seen that. But the threat of Orji running seems to have opened up lanes for at least Kalel Mullings, right? 159 yards and was 111 yards this past week. But Michigan's not going to win games on the stretch, right? 6 of the last 7 games are losable games. I think we need to see a big leap forward from him, passing the ball, running the ball, moving the chains in the second half, getting scoring drives, right? You haven't had a single scoring drive other than the breakaway 63-yard run and then got it in on 4th down against USC. Had a single scoring drive in the second half when it's non-scripted, when the defense has the ability to make adjustments at halftimes. Not one scoring drive other than that last one against USC with Alex Orji at the starting quarterback in the second half of the 2 games that he has started. I'm putting the number at 84. 84 is the number. I'm going to let you guys guess. Go down in the comments. O for over, U for under. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm going to go over. I'm going to be optimistic, James. Jack, I'm going to go over. Jack just like this. I said over. Jack goes, say your piece.
You'd almost be totaling his 2-game total. So
that's true, but he only had 32 that first game. So
I know, but
he had 80 or something like the second game.
We'll see. You know what? I'll say over. I'll be optimistic. I'll say over, but I'm on the line. It's close though.
There's another sponsor that is not in this show anymore because of legalities in the state of Michigan, but on some of our other shoes, PP action. We should put some money where our mouth is on Saturday. Put some more on that app, right? So we're gonna have to do that for Orji. Jack's like, yeah, I don't think you're very confident in your over. Let's take in some questions. Jack and I went into the comment section. Why not just kind of take some interesting comments and address them here to wrap up today's show. First comment I saw was from the Taxman. Whoa, hey, Jack, you get a tax extension. They're due 2 weeks from today. Tax extension's due if you got your extension. Taxman is on you. He says, I think this is an awful coaching staff. The players are not being set up for success. Kirk Campbell seems lost calling plays. Hasn't been the best. He needs to be stripped of those duties, and Sherrone needs to take over. One note I did see in some of the game recaps out there, this was one of the analytical things from Pro Football Focus. Michigan averaged, Jack, 0.86 yards. Not 8.6, 0.86, less than 1 yard on their rushing attempts per carry against Minnesota. So they were getting hit before they went 1 yard line against Minnesota. So what does that seem? That's an offensive line problem, right? That's maybe Donovan Edwards not hit the hole properly. But the criticism of the Michigan coaching staff, a team that's ranked number 10 in the country, is growing louder. And what kind of stops me from being super critical, because remember back in the first couple of years of the show, 2018 we were on Facebook, Facebook Live. 2019 we kind of were Facebook and YouTube. We didn't really go all into YouTube until the 2020 season, which was a disaster itself. But even those teams, I was highly critical of Jim Harbaugh's coaching in the fact that they were losing games to Ohio State. They weren't using their offense. I mean, think about this. Nico Collins is one of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers in all of the NFL right now. Michigan completely didn't use him. So I'm not going to jump down Sherrone's throat yet, because think back to when he started. He was the tight ends coach. Michigan had some really great tight ends plays those first couple of years. Then in 2021, switches to the offensive line. What happens then? Michigan has the best offensive line in college football over a 3-year period, 2 Joe Moore Award winners. And then he takes over full-time as offensive coordinator in the 2022 and then 2023 seasons. And what do you have? You've got the best offensive stretch, maybe in modern Michigan football history. You've got the best quarterback and the best quarterback play. Maybe that's what he was relying on, but nevertheless, he was the OC for the best quarterback in the history of this program, J.J. McCarthy. The best running back, I think, in the history of this program, Blake Corum. Joe Moore Award winners in 2022 and maybe the runner-ups in 23. 2 wide receivers who got drafted out of that group, and another one who was another tight end who's an All-American. That all developed under Sherrone Moore. And now he's lost 10 starters. And he played the game against USC with 0 returning starters. So I'm going to give him just a little bit because we've seen these groups get better over him over the years. But I think they need to have a game plan that is built to win, and they can't have these collapses in the second half, or the next 2 weeks is just going to be absolutely miserable for Michigan fans. If you got a bye week, you got nothing to redeem yourself, and it's going to be people calling for Sherrone Moore's head and Alex Orji shouldn't start, etc. Not even if they lose the game, if they just look inept on offense and pull out another squeaker like a 2, 3, 4-point win like they have, winning 3 points the last 2 weeks. How about Rue Gold? And he says, what about Jack Tuttle? What about Jack Tuttle? It was my favorite to be the opening day starter as we entered fall camp, but got re-injured. He had a shoulder injury, he had an ankle injury or elbow injury from spring practice, kind of re-injured. He's been injured really his entire career. I'll talk more about Jack Tuttle in a second, but let me get your vibes. Let me get the vibes on what you guys think for this game. Simply type M or W, Michigan or Washington. Let's see who's going to win this game. Michigan is a 2.5-point underdog, folks. Number 10 team going on the road against a 3-2 Washington team that's replacing just as many parts as Michigan has, and Michigan is an underdog. That's kind of what they call a sucker bet, a rat bet, Jack. It seems to me, at least if I was betting, I didn't have any juice in the table here, didn't have vested interest in Michigan winning, they would say, well, they want you to bet Michigan because, Michigan's number 10. They're getting 2.5 points, which means they want to make money on Washington winning. So that just kind of doesn't bode well. Right? I would expect Michigan to be a 3 to 5 point favorite in this one, not a 2.5 or 3 point underdog the way you go. So give me a M or a W. Let me know how you guys are thinking for this game. Rue says, what about Jack Tuttle? Well, as far as we know, he should be healthy because he's not been on the probable or the injured list the last 2 weeks. He's been on the field. He actually was throwing the ball into the first half on the sidelines when they showed some wider shots against Minnesota. But from what we've been hearing for the last 4 weeks is that he is not ready to go. And the best bet you could expect, at this point will be that stretch of games, 4 games in November. So I wouldn't expect him to be playing at all in October from what we've heard. And maybe that's just them blowing smoke, the people I talked to in and around the program, that maybe can return, but I'm not optimistic for it. If you can't get any snaps, if he's not getting the game at all now, and if he doesn't get in, let's just say the week after the bye, right, middle of October, then it's probably looking like at best you could expect him to be back in November, if ever. Sherrod Smith, need to start appreciating Wink more. Literally the reason we are 4-1. This is a college team. If you had a good QB, you're not shutting them down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I disagree that Wink is the reason Michigan's 4-1. The reason they're 4-1 is Clell Mullings broke off a 63-yard pass run, and maybe some of that's due part. Okay, cool. They held USC to only 24 points, but Clell Mullings was the reason, and I think he's even the reason that they won against Minnesota, right? Getting those 2 touchdowns in the first half. Wink has been impressive in these first halves, right? 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, other than Texas. But when teams go in and say, this is what they're doing, this is what they're bringing against us, he has been exposed in the second half. So that's one thing I'm watching for. You got to have second half adjustments. That's what Jesse Minter was the best in college football at. That was what Mike McDonald was the best in all of college football. 3 years later, he's an NFL head coach. Can Wink Martindale do the same dang thing? And frankly, with all this talent they've got on the defensive line, right? If Josaiah Stewart's back, you've got 4 stars. Derek Moore, Josaiah Stewart, Kenneth Grant, okay? You got Mason Graham. You even got Rayshon, Trap Money Benny, TJ Guy. You've got litter with high-level players. Stop all the blitzing. They didn't blitz the guys the last 2 years. 3 years, your proteges, Mike McDonald, Jesse Minter, they did not blitz at such a high rate, 35 and 40% of the time you're blitzing. It leaves one less guy, and if you got a quarterback like Miller Moss, so you got maybe a quarterback like Will Rogers at Washington who's played 20 and 30 starts in the NFL, in college football, he sees that guy come off the edge, the extra one less person up there, cool, he knows where to go with the ball. It's 6 yards, it's uncontested, and maybe you're turning up field, getting 5, 6, 7 or more yards. Don't have to blitz some more. Keep guessing sometimes because it's not very tough for me, even just watching on TV or at the game, to know when this Michigan defense is blitzing under Wink Martindale. Reminder, if you like today's video, or if you would like to beat Washington, I should say, then like today's video. Don't jinx it. I'm going to be wearing the lucky shirt on Saturday. Give you a like on today's video. Michigan will beat Washington. We will be back on Wednesday for Young Harbaugh, Jack Latteray. Jack, hopefully you get some Twitter follows. We tossed your Twitter account across the bottom. I am James Yoder. You've been watching the Michigan Football Report. Like the video. Go Blue.